Part 1. They say a good marriage is built on trust, communication, and loyalty. They never talk about the silence. The kind that creeps in when you're too afraid to admit that something you love might already be dead. My name's Ryan, and for most of my 30s, I lived the American dream. Solid job at a logistics firm, a decent house in a nice suburb, a 6-year-old son who thought I hung the moon, and a wife, Jessica, who turned heads everywhere she went. People envied us. They thought we were the picture of happiness. We even had the dog. Every weekday was a predictable waltz. Wake up early, brew the coffee, pack our son's lunch, kiss Jessica goodbye as she darted off in a cloud of floral perfume and high heels. She worked as a real estate agent, and not just any agent. She was good. Better than good. People knew her name. Billboards, benches, sold signs, Jessica Realty. I was proud. I told anyone who would listen that she was unstoppable. In those early years, I never questioned the late showings, the business dinners, the weekends networking. I'd bring our son, Ethan, to soccer practice, come home, heat up leftovers, and wait for her key to turn in the lock. Sometimes she'd come in tired but smiling, planting a kiss on my cheek. Other times, she'd breeze past, already texting someone, her mind somewhere else. At first, I chalked it up to ambition. Hell, I admired it. If I noticed the long glances at her phone or the whispered calls in the backyard for better reception, I shrugged it off. The real estate market was cutthroat. Jessica was just hustling, grinding. Or so I told myself. The first real crack came on a Tuesday. I remember because it was Ethan's parent-teacher conference, and Jessica couldn't get away from a showing. Fair enough, I thought. I took notes, shook hands, and proudly texted her the highlights. No response. Hours later, she stumbled in, hair mussed, makeup slightly smudged. She smelled faintly of red wine and expensive cologne that wasn't mine. I opened my mouth to ask how the showing went, but something, maybe cowardice, maybe instinct, stopped me. Instead, I asked if she ate. She said she grabbed a quick bite with a client. 2 days later, a dry cleaning receipt surfaced in the laundry basket. It wasn't mine. An Armani jacket and a silk dress I'd never seen her wear. A dress that didn't show up in our closet. When I asked, she laughed it off. Oh, that old thing? Loaned it to Sarah from the office. Sarah, the catch-all scapegoat. Still, I wanted to believe her. Needed to. Weeks passed. Then came the work trip to San Diego. Jessica was always good at planning, but this time, the details were fuzzy. She booked her own flight, paid for her own hotel room to save the company money, refused to let Ethan and me drop her off at the airport, saying she was meeting colleagues first. The night she left, Ethan cried himself to sleep. He hated when Mommy went away. I sat on the couch, the TV flickering in the background, pretending to watch a game I didn't care about. I told myself not to call, not to text too much, not to be that husband. I caved. Sent her a simple good night. We miss you. No reply. The next morning, she posted a photo on her business Instagram. It was networking brunch, mimosas, smiling faces, a glint of the ocean in the background. Standing close to Jessica, too close, was a man I'd seen before. Brad, the local superstar realtor. The guy who closed million-dollar homes and posed for glossy magazines with fake smiles and $1,000 haircuts. I'd shaken his hand once at a community event. Smug bastard looked through me like I was a busboy. In the photo, his hand brushed Jessica's waist. My gut twisted, but my brain threw up every defense. It was nothing. They worked together. It was just a picture. The lies we tell ourselves to sleep at night. When Jessica came home, she was different. Colder. Like someone had flipped a switch. She still kissed Ethan goodnight, still made small talk about the trip, but when she looked at me, it was through me. Like I was a familiar piece of furniture she no longer needed. I noticed her phone glued to her hand now. Face down on the table during dinner. Silent mode during family movie nights. One afternoon, when she stepped into the shower, a text buzzed across the screen. Just a first name, Brad, followed by a heart emoji. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't touch it. Didn't scroll. Just watched it fade back to black. Rationalizing became harder. Ethan would ask if Mommy was coming to his next soccer game. She'll try, I promise. And when she didn't show up, I'd make excuses. For her. For us. Our house grew colder. The warmth between us became mechanical. She stopped laughing at my dumb jokes. Stopped reaching for my hand at night. The silence stretched longer and longer, heavy with things we weren't saying. One evening, while putting Ethan to bed, he whispered, "Why doesn't Mommy want to play with us anymore?" I kissed his forehead, blinked hard, and lied through my teeth. She's just busy, buddy. She loves you so much. But I knew. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan, listening to her soft breathing beside me, and realized that whatever we had, it wasn't just slipping away. It was already gone. Something terrible was unfolding just beyond my reach. I could feel it, like a storm building in the distance. The air was too still, too heavy, and deep down, I knew. This wasn't just marriage trouble. It was betrayal, and it was coming for everything I loved. Part 2. If the cracks were small before, they were chasms now. I stopped making excuses. I stopped lying to myself. I started paying attention, really paying attention, for the first time in years. Jessica was careful, slippery, but no one can hide everything, not forever. It started with her phone. Once sacred and shared between us, now it was locked down tighter than a bank vault. New password. Face down on every surface. Silent mode always. When I asked about it casually over breakfast, she didn't flinch. You know, with all the clients and spam calls, it's easier this way, she said lightly, sipping her coffee without meeting my eyes. Since when do spam calls text you hearts? I asked, my tone just a shade too light. She laughed. A little too hard. A little too fast. Don't be jealous, Ryan. It's probably a client being friendly. A client. Right. Later that week, I noticed timeline inconsistencies. Jessica said she was stuck showing a property across town, but when I drove by on a whim, the house was dark, locked, and empty. No car. No lights. Nothing. When she came home, flushed and breathless, I mentioned it. I thought you were showing the Bennett house? Oh, she said, blinking too fast. The buyer canceled. Last minute. I decided to grab dinner with Sarah. Sarah. Again. A couple of nights later, I noticed a lipstick stain faint, but there, on the inside collar of her blouse. Jessica never wore that shade. It was darker, bolder. A shade I didn't recognize. New lipstick? I asked, voice casual, almost lazy. Jessica glanced down, confused for a split second before her mask slid back into place. Yeah, trying something new. She never wore it again. Gaslighting became her weapon of choice. Little things. Forgetting conversations we'd had. Denying plans we'd made. Telling me I was too paranoid, too insecure. Each time I confronted her, even gently, she turned it back on me until I wondered if maybe I was losing my mind. But I wasn't. I knew I wasn't. One night, after she worked late, I checked her car. The passenger seat was pushed back further than she ever set it. Long, light-colored hairs clung to the headrest. Jessica's hair was dark. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, I started my own quiet investigation. When she left her purse unattended, I rifled through it. Found a crumpled receipt from an expensive steakhouse across town, a place we'd never gone to together. The bill was for 2 entrees, 2 glasses of wine, and a dessert. Business dinner, Jessica said when I brought it up, her tone bored, almost annoyed. Brad insisted. You know how he is. Brad. Every time his name came up, it tasted bitter on my tongue. I kept digging. I cloned her phone one night while she slept, breathing softly beside me, utterly unaware. It wasn't easy. She had apps hidden, discreet, disguised behind calculator icons and shopping apps. Messages that vanished after reading. But I caught glimpses. Flashes of something undeniable. Can't wait to see you again. Last night was incredible. You're all I think about. No names. No photos. Just enough to make me want to throw my phone across the room. I didn't. I stayed cold. I stayed patient. The next morning, Jessica kissed me goodbye with lips that tasted of guilt. I started noticing small things at home. The way she lingered in the shower. The extra care with her hair and makeup before client meetings. The way she hummed under her breath, smiling to herself like a teenager with a crush. Once, I caught her twirling her hair around her finger, texting furiously, her cheeks flushed. She didn't even realize I was standing in the doorway, watching her. Another evening, while putting away laundry, I found a second phone charger hidden behind the nightstand. Jessica only had one phone. When I confronted her about the charger, she laughed. Must be old. You know how much junk collects back there. I nodded, smiled. Let her think I bought it. Inside, a storm was building. Late one night, after she slipped into a restless sleep, I sat on the back porch, the cold biting through my sweatshirt. Staring into the dark, I finally let myself admit the truth. This wasn't harmless flirting. This wasn't innocent misunderstandings. Jessica was having an affair. Not just any affair. A full-blown, soul-shredding betrayal with Brad Coleman, the golden boy of real estate, the man who grinned at cameras while stabbing me in the back. And the worst part? She wasn't even sorry. The signs were everywhere. The hidden apps, the late nights, the intimate glances caught when she thought no one was looking, the sudden bursts of affection designed to cover her guilt. It was worse than I had imagined. Far worse. And deep in my gut, a realization took root. The life I thought I was saving was already dead. Now it was only a matter of time before everything collapsed. And when it did, I wasn't going to be the one buried under the rubble. Part 3. The day the truth finally surfaced, it wasn't loud. It wasn't fireworks and screaming and shattered dishes. It was quiet. So quiet that when it happened, it almost didn't seem real. Jessica had left her laptop open on the kitchen table, something she never did anymore. It sat there like an invitation, like a loaded gun left in plain sight. I ignored it at first. Went about making coffee, packing Ethan's lunch, tying his shoes. I kissed his forehead, watched him climb into the school bus, and when I turned back to the house, the laptop was still there, waiting. My hands moved before my brain could stop them. The screen blinked to life. No password. Jessica must have been in a rush. It took less than 2 minutes. Emails. Hundreds of them. Some labeled under a secret folder tucked inside her work account, client relations. Hidden in plain sight. But they weren't business emails. They were love letters. From Brad. Photos followed. Selfies of them at restaurants, laughing together. Photos of Jessica, dressed up, posed in hotel rooms I didn't recognize. One picture burned itself into my memory. Brad standing behind her, his hand possessively on her waist. Jessica tilting her head back into his shoulder, eyes closed in bliss. There was a cloud drive linked to her account too. Videos. Short clips. Snippets of stolen weekends. Secret getaways labeled as conferences and networking events. My stomach turned to ice. I clicked through each one methodically, absorbing every frame, every kiss, every touch that was supposed to belong to me. My body went numb. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just stopped. Inside the cloud storage were receipts. Lavish gifts paid for with our joint account. A bracelet I'd thought she bought for her mother. A weekend in Napa I believed was a company retreat. It got worse. Jessica had created a second bank account. In her maiden name. Payments were being funneled into it. Commissions, bonuses, gifts Brad had given her to keep things separate. Money I didn't even know existed. A second phone plan under her maiden name too. Registered 6 months ago. Burner phones. Secret calls. A double life so intricate, so calculated. It was almost admirable in a sick way. I sat there staring at the laptop for what felt like hours. The world outside moved on. Birds sang. Cars passed. Somewhere, a dog barked. And I sat there, a hollowed-out version of the man I had been, drowning quietly in a life that had never truly been mine. When Jessica breezed through the front door an hour later, shopping bags in hand, humming under her breath, I closed the laptop gently and looked up at her. "Hey, babe," she chirped, dropping the bags on the counter. "Guess what was on sale?" I smiled. A small, empty smile. "Looks like you had a good day," I said. She blinked. For a split second, the mask slipped. She looked at me a little too closely, like a chess player realizing she might have missed a move. "Yeah," she said, a fraction too slow. I nodded and went back to rinsing dishes. Not a word about what I'd found. Not yet. That night, we had dinner like nothing was wrong. Ethan talked about dinosaurs. Jessica laughed at all the right moments. I chewed my food, tasted nothing, and cataloged every detail. She kissed Ethan goodnight. She kissed me goodnight. And I let her. Lying in the dark, staring at the ceiling, I realized something had changed inside me. Something permanent. I didn't want revenge in the way a child wants to break a toy. I didn't want screaming matches, messy public blow-ups, or cheap drama. I wanted precision. I wanted control. Jessica thought she was playing a game I didn't know existed. But I wasn't the fool she thought I was anymore. She had no idea the war she had started. Over the next few days, I moved in silence. I contacted a lawyer. A shark known for ripping apart custody cases and financial settlements like a butcher with a cleaver. I pulled bank statements, made copies of every document I could find. I cloned her second phone. I found her messages to Brad about moving in together once things were sorted. I set traps. Camera systems were upgraded. Voice recorders hidden in her car and purse. I even hired a private investigator, a former cop who'd seen it all and wasn't above getting his hands dirty. Each day, I smiled at Jessica a little more. Each night, I held Ethan a little tighter. And every minute, I planned. Planned for the moment when Jessica's fantasy world would come crashing down around her. I would not shout. I would not cry. I would dismantle her life with the same careful hands she once trusted to build it. Because now, the only thing stronger than the betrayal she handed me was the cold, unstoppable resolve she had created in me. And when the time came to pull the trigger, she wouldn't even see it coming. Part 4. You learn a lot about a person when you peel back the layers they've carefully built. Jessica wasn't just a cheater. She was a fraud in every sense of the word. It started small. A discrepancy in our joint bank account that my lawyer flagged. Small transfers, nothing outrageous, but regular, steady enough to catch the eye of someone trained to find cracks in financial facades. You know about this? My lawyer asked, sliding the statements across the desk. No, I said calmly, already suspecting the answer. Jessica was siphoning money, not just hiding a second account. She was actively laundering commissions from her real estate sales into private holdings I hadn't even known existed. And Brad was in on it. Turns out, their little love story came with a price tag. Jessica had been adjusting property sale amounts, pocketing the difference, and paying Brad under the table. Fraud, embezzlement, multiple counts. Enough to bury them both if someone, say, a furious, methodical husband, decided to pull the right strings. I set the final plan in motion without hesitation. While Jessica spent her days working and her nights at yoga, I gathered everything. The financial records, the cloned phone data, the emails, the secret accounts, the videos. My private investigator unearthed even more photos of Jessica and Brad meeting in out-of-town hotels registered under false names. They weren't just cheating. They were running a scam that could destroy both of them. The day of reckoning arrived disguised as just another beautiful Saturday. Jessica was hosting a networking brunch at one of her latest listings, a sprawling mansion she bragged about closing soon. A lot of important people were attending, colleagues, potential buyers, Brad himself. She wanted Ethan and me there to keep up appearances. Oh, I'd keep up appearances, all right. I arrived with Ethan in tow, dressed in my best suit, every inch the devoted husband. I smiled, shook hands, chatted about schools and mortgages and the weather. Meanwhile, my private investigator, posing as a client, slipped a flash drive into the event's AV system. The presentation Jessica had prepared for her guests. It started with her polished slideshow, bright houses, smiling families, before glitching, flashing, and then the real footage played. Photos of Jessica and Brad. Emails about fake sales figures. Transaction histories. Snapshots of hotel room bookings under aliases. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Jessica dropped her champagne flute. It shattered at her feet, the sound cutting through the stunned silence like a gunshot. Brad, standing near the back, turned an impressive shade of gray. Jessica scrambled for the remote, trying to shut it down, but it was too late. The damage was done. People were recording on their phones. Whispers turned to shouts. Is this for real? That's illegal. I trusted her with my listing. Jessica looked around desperately, her face crumbling. Ryan, she gasped, finally seeing me standing calmly near the doorway, Ethan's hand in mine. Please. I tilted my head, studying her like a bug under glass. I'm just here for the show, I said. The police arrived within 30 minutes. Not for me, of course. My lawyer had made sure every piece of evidence was properly submitted beforehand. The authorities were already investigating. They took Jessica and Brad aside, questioning them separately. Jessica cried. Brad sweated through his designer shirt. By nightfall, Jessica's brokerage had terminated her. Clients withdrew listings. Friends ghosted her. Our local news station picked up the scandal. By Monday morning, her picture was splashed across headlines. Local realtors caught in fraud and adultery scandal. Her name was poison. Brad's career collapsed even faster. The golden boy turned into a pariah overnight. Lawsuits followed. Disgraced and abandoned, he put his overpriced condo on the market within a week, trying to salvage whatever he could. And me? I filed for divorce the same day the story broke. I petitioned for full custody of Ethan, citing Jessica's moral turpitude, ongoing investigations, and emotional instability. With the mountain of evidence I had, It wasn't even a contest. The court handed me full custody so fast it felt like a mercy killing. Jessica tried to fight it, filed counterclaims, wept in court, claimed she only wanted affection, that loneliness had driven her to bad decisions. The judge didn't even blink. "You made your choices, Mrs. Jessica," he said coldly. "Now you can live with them." The final moment came during the custody ruling. Jessica tried to approach me outside the courtroom, her makeup smeared, hands trembling. "Ryan, please," she whispered, voice cracking. "I didn't mean for any of this." I looked at her the way you look at a dying fire, with cold detachment. "You meant every bit of it," I said quietly. "You just didn't think you'd get caught." Then I turned and walked away, Ethan's hand safely wrapped in mine, never once looking back. Jessica's life collapsed around her like a sandcastle swallowed by the tide. And me? I stood strong, silent, and unbreakable. Exactly as she had taught me to become. Part 5. There's a strange kind of silence that comes after you burn your old life to the ground. Not peace. Not at first. Something heavier. Like standing in the middle of a battlefield when the last cannon stops firing, the smoke still curling in the air, bodies strewn around you, and realizing that somehow, you're still breathing. Jessica's world crumbled quickly. The investigations mounted. The lawsuits piled up. Friends vanished. Family stopped taking her calls. Even Brad turned his back on her when the legal bills started rolling in and the vultures closed in. They had deserved each other, both delusional enough to think there wouldn't be consequences. She moved out of our home with a garbage bag of clothes and nowhere to go. Word got around fast. No one wanted her name attached to anything. The golden girl of real estate reduced to a disgraced punchline. Meanwhile, Ethan and I started rebuilding. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy. There were nights I sat at the kitchen table after he fell asleep, staring at the mortgage paperwork, the bills, the broken pieces of a future I had once built for 3. But I never let him see me falter. I found a smaller house closer to his school. Older, humbler, but ours. We painted the walls ourselves, grilled hot dogs in the backyard, turned every scratch and dent into a battle scar we wore proudly. Every morning, I packed his lunch, drove him to school, helped him with his homework at night. Built something real out of the ashes. One piece at a time. Jessica tried reaching out once. A letter slipped into the mailbox, no return address, her handwriting shaky. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I've lost everything. I made a mistake. I miss you. I miss our family. I miss being your wife. Please, can we talk?" I never responded. I didn't need to. She made her bed. Let her rot in it. But life has a twisted sense of humor. 2 months after the dust settled, I learned that the betrayal ran even deeper than I thought. It wasn't just Brad. It wasn't just Jessica. It was my own brother, Nate. I found out by accident. A forgotten conversation replayed itself when I was cleaning out old voicemails, a message Nate had left when Ethan was born, congratulating me. In the background, I heard Jessica's laugh. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was intimate, familiar. My stomach twisted. I dug further. Photos. Emails. Text from years ago. Before Brad. Before any of this blew up. Nate and Jessica had started it. A drunk night celebrating my promotion. A secret they buried and pretended never happened. She had betrayed me long before Brad ever entered the picture. My own brother. The only family I thought I could trust. I sat there that night, staring at the evidence, feeling nothing. Not rage. Not grief. Just a cold, hollow acceptance. People you love are capable of things you can't imagine. You give them your trust like a gift, and they cut your throat with it. The next morning, I blocked Nate's number. Deleted him from my life with the same steady hand I'd used to erase Jessica. No drama. No confrontation. Just a door slammed shut forever. And it felt good. Better than I expected. Life moved on. Slow. Steady. Quiet. No dramatic victories. No parades. Just small wins. Ethan's laughter. My own steady heartbeat. The knowledge that every morning I woke up without lies poisoning the air I breathed. I wasn't the same man anymore. The man who ignored the signs. The man who thought love could conquer betrayal. That man died with my old life. What rose from those ashes was something else entirely. Colder. Sharper. Unbreakable. I learned that trust is a luxury, not a guarantee. That love without respect is a loaded gun pointed at your heart. That sometimes, the only way to survive is to become something harder than the things trying to destroy you. I wasn't just a survivor. I was reborn. Wiser. Stronger. And this time, I wasn't leaving any doors open for betrayal to slip through. Jessica, Brad, Nate, they were just chapters in a book I'd already closed. Ahead of me was something cleaner, harder, built not on dreams, but on truth. I smiled to myself as I locked up the house that night, Ethan already asleep upstairs. I wasn't looking backward anymore. And nothing, no one, would ever break me again. The end.